Welcome, everybody, to the Competition Archery Media Podcast, where we explore all things pertaining to competition archery. I'm your host, PJ Riley, and the CAM Podcast is brought to you by O'Neill's Classic Archery. With us today, we have, fresh off her winning of the first women's known pro class shoot-down final in the ASA, Paige Pearce. Paige, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How has that, what's the reception been to that? I know you wanted this for such a long time. Now that it's happened, what has been the reception for you?
I would say 99% of it has been really, really good. This was something that, it's been in the works and it's been spoken about since my first go around at ASA, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And I actually transitioned over and did shoot a year of unknown. A lot of people don't know this.
I did not know that.
I actually made my second ever shoot down. So Fort Benning, I made the shoot down and finished fourth in the unknown division. No practice. I was never home to practice that. So just kind of winged it. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool game. But I could see that there was a lot of people that would want to come in and shoot known in the pro class, and there wasn't that opportunity. And at that time, it was just kind of like, well, this is just the way it is. Well, then since then, they got a men's known pro.
Yes.
And when that happened, that kind of sparked my interest as to okay, I feel like now we could get a women's known pro and this could happen. It could be a reality.
Yes.
So it's been a few years in the works. It's been a lot of discussions and a lot of work behind the scenes and, but all positive and good stuff. And good things take time. So here we are now.
And that was a commitment from you. You're in California. This ASA is as far away from you as it can get. And you're already had a busy shooting schedule, but you made the commitment. Hey, if we're going to have this class, I'm going to commit to it. Talk about what that meant for you, how you had to change things to make that happen.
Yeah. So I'm actually still on our USAT team, United States Archery team, through USA Archery. I'm still ranked number 1, and I actually decided to turn down all of the World Cups. I'm also not going to World Championships because that overlaps the ASA class. I would have to try out for that. Let me leave with that, but I'm not even doing the trials because they overlap the ASA Classic. And so basically when this went through and we knew we were getting the division, I hoped there wasn't going to be a lot of overlap and I hoped that everything would work out. But let's be honest, we've all seen the schedules. It's really tough. And so I just made the decision that it's if ASA is willing to take that risk, then so am I. And target's what I know. It's what I grew up shooting. But I was I want to learn this game and I want to get better. And I also want to be there to support the women that are coming in and the ASA and the class. And so, I pulled back from basically all things World Archery. I still will shoot the four of the 5 USAT events here in the U.S., but I'm like an ASA girl now.
So for you, you shot the California, the trail shoot style or Western U.S. style of 3D where there's an aiming dot. How different is that really for you, someone who's the best at, who, is really elite at both levels? How much different is that?
So much more different than people realize. And I think that's the kicker. Even my own dad back here is that's not hard. It's 50 yards. I could do that so easy. How do you miss? How do you, and because we're shooting out to 100 yards here, right? So it's just very different. For me, I think ASA is so much about knowing the targets and knowing where to aim. And even more than that, and the part that I still have a long way to go on learning is how to aim off arrows and how to make quick judgment calls. Sometimes you're up first and sometimes you're up fourth or fifth. And so a lot of the times my plan is this is what I think I can see and I'm going to aim there. Well, then someone shoots an arrow here and here and here. And now you have to completely change your game plan on the fly and then hopefully aim correctly off those arrows, which that has proven to be probably the most challenging thing, I think, for me. The cool thing about shooting known is that you really can do it without owning the targets. So I do own some of them, which is great. So I can practice on them. I can look at them to get my sight picture set up how I want. But for the stuff over here, having a big orange dot, I can run a super high-powered 8-power lens, run all the way out at 33-inch sight length, really blurry, doesn't matter, comfort dot, right?
Right.
So going to ASA has been the first time that I'm dang, I have to pull back the magnification. I actually have to have a clear sight picture. I did have LASIK in 2020, to fix my far vision. Now my close vision's not great. So it's like trying to get a clear sight picture and still have a pin in my sight is proven to be a problem. And so it's just been interesting because to me, ASA is so much more than just how you shoot. Right. And, you know, people will say, oh, well, the judging's more about how you judge. Of course it is. We understand that, but you still have to shoot. But this is still about knowing how to aim, knowing the targets, having a game plan, executing that game plan, and then making good shots, you know? So there's a lot of elements there that people don't realize.
So in the shoot down, you had the Black Panther out there. For me, that's the one that I can never see anything on that target. What was that like? Because it's different when you're outside. There is a little bit more, just that ambient light highlights different areas, and then indoors, nothing. It just looks black.
We talked about this before heading out, and I was like, man, I kind of dislike that we have to go from shooting, you know, qualifying outside and then shooting the final 5, the most important, you know, 5 targets probably inside, because your pin, even if you have a light on it, it looks differently. Like when you're running a clarifier setup and you're kind of pushing the limits on it, which I am, that's a little different. So my pin was half non-existent, which was already interesting out there. And you're right, like those lights do not highlight the definition on the target at all. Yeah. And I saw pretty good all weekend. And so all of a sudden we get out there and I drew back on the turkey and I was like, whoa, I couldn't even see the core line, which is not good. Like normally if I can at least see the core line, you've got a good idea of where you kind of need to be. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, use those white dots because I don't know like what else to aim off of. So then we get to the Panther and everyone had been kind of teasing me like, you need to shoot some 14s and you need to whatever. And I was like, well, if I can see them, okay, like that's fine. So I got to the Panther, and I don't know if you could see it. I like turned around, and I was like, I'm going to do it. So when I drew back, I actually drew back aiming at the 14. Well, I thought. And I like came in, and I was like, I can't see anything. And I knew there was this like glare spot on the target below the 14. So I was like, find the glare spot, and then you know you're close. You'll be able to pick it up. Right. Well, I could see the glare and it looked like it was 8 inches wide through my scope. So I'm like, is it on the left side, the right side? How high above it? I didn't want to let down and look. And so in my mind, I was just like, abort mission. And so I just flung down to the lower. And then I'm like, I still can't see the core line. Like I don't even know where the 12 is. So I'm not going to lie on that target. I did hit the 12. It was like complete luck. that was luck. That was not skill. I completely guessed. So it's nerve-wracking in the way that you're out there and you're in front of people and it's the first one and you want to look good and have a good showing and not screw up. And then all of a sudden you're seeing completely different than what you saw all weekend, which is like every time I drew my bow back, you have that couple seconds of like, oh man, what do I do? And what's my game plan? Because you don't know until you draw back. And we have a minute, plenty of time to let down and look and whatever, but seems like nobody ever does that. So you kind of just roll with it.
So how was that? I mean, you've been on the Vegas shoot finals. You've been now to the classic finals several times. You've won it this year, the Lancaster Archery Classic. What was that ASA finals shoot down like for you? Also knowing, just what you said, that it's the first one, that, it's on YouTube. People are watching, thousands of people. What was that like for you to walk out and experience that?
So in a way of like pressure of it being a shoot down and, it being a final. And like you said, I've done a lot of that for years since I was young. That part of it was very familiar to me. The part that is really difficult, once again, it's not just about your shooting. There's so much going on. And so I was pretty lucky going into that shoot off that I had, a cushion. So I didn't have to pay too much attention, but I kind of wanted to just experience it to see what it was like. And so the one thing that I really took away from that was it's so hard to like set your sight, focus on what you want to do for the next target, but then see and pay attention to where everybody else is. And so this is going to sound ridiculous because my eyes really aren't great. This will tell you how bad they are, but they only put the scores like on the screen, right? And I can't read it with my eyes. Like I cannot see it. When I pull my binos up, I'm too close and I see like the individual LEDs. Yeah. So I was like, I actually have nowhere to read or see what the scores are. And they used to write it on a written like handwritten thing. And I liked that because it was whiteboard. You could look at it with binos if you needed to and tell. So afterward, when I came out, I was like, I couldn't see where anybody was the whole time. And someone said to me, oh, well, I think it was Josh. He's like, just listen to Mike. Mike announces it every time. And I'm like, he was talking? Like, I never even heard him. What? And so it's just like you train for so long to just tune everything out.
Yeah.
And for target, it's so easy, like 10, 9, 10, 9, 8. Ooh, oh man. Okay. There's 2. Like, and then the flip cards are down there. You can see your flip card every single time, and it's announced. And there's no crazy stuff happening. It's not like they shot for a 14 and hit a 5, and now you're trying to do math on, well, I had a 12 and I was up by this, and now what?
Yeah.
It's tough. So I think everybody, all of us out there probably felt that, because I mean, I feel I would like to think that I handled the nerves pretty well, and I was still crazy overwhelmed with that.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a learning curve. Just knowing where you are, what's smart. Do I need this 12? Do I need a 14? And I think you might see some of us make mistakes, and you look back and go, why would you do that? We probably didn't know what was going on. We probably thought we needed it. I think that's going to happen this year. Hopefully not to me, but it probably will, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that 14, of course, is a risk reward shot. And if the scores were tighter, that's what you'd have to weigh. Do I need this risk right now? Mm-hmm. Maybe you do.
Yeah, for sure. This is going to sound interesting. But so I shot OPA, and I shot the finals of OPA for a lot of years, and I did really well at OPA.
Yeah.
And every single year when I went into OPA, I was leading into the final. And so you shoot different when you're ahead and you're just trying to not lose and maintain than when you're behind and you're gunning to win. You have nothing to lose if you go in behind. When you go in first, you have everything to lose, and you're just trying to hold on. So I think what's been interesting for me is I have never been put in that situation where I can be like, let's just go for the 14. What do I have to lose? Let's try it, right? And I've seen some women be put in those situations. I remember we were shooting OPA one year, and like the rain and the wind in the final, and it was terrible. And Linda goes out there and shoots like 14-14. And I'm like, but I can't do anything. And that's what I wish more people explained this that have done ASA, and maybe they have, and I just missed it. But like when you're leading, you're just sitting there going, hope they don't catch me. I can't be too risky. I can't screw it up. I'm just sitting waiting, and I can't start playing that game until they're close enough or they've caught me and I have to. So I think you're going to see different elements of us going, like, trust me, I wish I could just go out there and be like, let's go for it. Let's shoot 14s. Let's be cool. But like, you have to be strategic about it. And so I think you're going to see different sides of each archer depending on the position that they go into the shoot down. And I think that's something that a lot of people at home also don't realize.
Yeah. Yeah. I love talking the strategy. There was one point I wanted to make sure I got in, because I know this was something that you had heard about, and I don't know if you had heard the numbers, but we all heard, when women's known pro and senior known pro comes in, it's going to kill senior pro and women's pro. You're just going to take archers away. So I don't know if you've seen the numbers from Foley.
I have. No, this is good.
So, yes. So in Foley 2022, in senior pro, there were 47 archers. In women's pro, there were 24 archers. This year, Foley 2023, there were 48 in senior pro. Women's pro had the exact same number at 24, and then we added 42 in senior known and 17 in women's known pro. So that in aggregate, we didn't steal any archers. We only added to the pro class.
I think this is really important, and I'm glad that you have those numbers. And honestly, we have the data from those numbers from when the men's known pro was established quite a few years ago.
Yes.
And if you pull those numbers, because we did, it's the same. So the men's open pro, the numbers were still there. They were holding strong. And then, oh my gosh, we have 100 new pros that we brought in the men's known pro. Yeah. So when you look at those numbers, I have a really hard time understanding why there are people out there, right? I said 99% good, right? When I led with that.
Yes.
That are just so against it and like so hateful and like spiteful and just not nice that there's now a known pro. There's enough room for everybody there. Yeah. Like ASAs are huge. There's a lot of people. And the point that I always make to people when I talk about this is numbers don't lie. and you have those numbers. The other numbers that if people want to go look up, they probably could, is look how many people in the amateur divisions are shooting in known classes versus unknown classes.
That's the thing.
Huge percentage more are shooting known than unknown. So with that being said, those archers deserve a place. They've been in the organization for years. They deserve a place to go.
Yep.
And now they have that, regardless of gender or age division or, whatever that may be. And so I think that's great for the ones that are shooting in the unknown class. They still have a place to go.
Yes.
So I think this should be just like a really positive thing overall. And for the most part, it genuinely is. But there's like the diehard old school ASA type people. And I'm like, hate me all you want, but the numbers don't lie. Like, look at the facts, look at the numbers, and keep hating. Whatever, I don't care. But,
and it's fine for them to have that opinion or that fear ahead of time. But then once you get into it and see what you were afraid of actually didn't happen, I would think, hey, it's okay. Then, yes, let's all let's have a class for everybody. I know one of the things Josh Grind was always concerned about too, besides the women's known pro, was like all those known pro guys. I mean, that's the biggest pro class. Where do they go when they hit 50? What are they supposed to do? All of a sudden they have to start judging, or they have to stay shooting against,
I truthfully think we'd lose a lot of them if we didn't have, this option. And so I think the ASA did a really good thing. I think it's going to be super positive. And I know on the women's side, and we all knew this was going to happen. The first time that you start a new division like that we know there's less women in archery, right? That's something that we can all agree upon. We knew the numbers weren't going to be super high, but I was actually really excited with how many women did transition over. One thing I didn't realize until like a couple days before the event, I'm pretty sure, was I was thinking that the women's K50 class that we shot in last year was just kind of rolling over and that would go away. Well, it didn't. No. They actually left the K50. A lot of the women ended up staying in K50, and we still had 17 women come over for the first event. So not only did, they didn't just like take away that class and add one so everybody, rolled over or rolled in. We added a whole new division, and the K50 class was still full as well as ours. So again, looking at those numbers, I think for the future, it's going to be really good. I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see that number grow. I think we're going to see new women come in. I've already had a few of the foreign women message me and being like, hey, all right, we want to see how this goes and let us know what you think. And this is something we would maybe come over for. And I'm like, like that's what we want. We want that competition. We want those numbers. And we want to show people that, we're dedicated to that.
Yeah. How cool was it for you? I know a lot of the young women look up to you for your archery accomplishments. And so there's you and Tanya Galantine out there. Obviously, your resumes speak for themselves. And then, boom, you got Madison Cox, Danielle Woody, and Hannah Moose. I think the oldest one is Hannah at 22. So, they're just coming out of college. This is their first big time experience. How cool was that for you to see that?
It's really neat. And it's great to see that we have like a whole pool of women that maybe you haven't seen or people haven't heard of, and they haven't had those experiences. And so to see who ended up making the shoot down, and a lot of those girls, it was like, well, let's say 3 of them. It's like, this is your first like real big, pressure situation. And they handled it very well. Like I was pretty impressed. And I think it's the other thing I think people need to be a little understanding about. I did hear some people go, not for our division, and I won't throw anybody under the bus, but for some other classes, well, they didn't perform as well as I thought, or, oh, this division totally outperformed this division. For the divisions that are new out there, like ours, a lot of the women that are out there are also going to be new to that too. So I will, just for this example, directly compare the two classes of women. But if you look in the Open Pro, it's pretty much the same 4 women that make it every time, maybe a 5th floater. And how many shoot downs have they done? 50, 70, 100 more? Like they've been doing that since they were young. I hope they're better out there than we are. You know what I mean? Than the women that are just starting. I know that they sure as heck have a better strategy of watching scores, playing the game, hearing what he's saying, knowing what they need to do. Like I felt like a rookie in that instance, and I wasn't a rookie to a pressure situation, but to that kind of pressure situation? Totally. So I know that the other 4 women standing out there with me felt the same way. So we have a learning curve. Like, we are years behind in the essence of having a shoot down. And I think it's going to take a little time for us to get comfortable. But one thing that I don't know that you guys saw out there on the range, our final 5 changed hugely in the last 3 targets. So, and I was shooting on the top bail, and Morgan Reeves had been there most of the weekend. We figured she would be there. Yep. She was hanging strong, and she ends up missing a target, misset her sight right at the end. And there goes Morgan. Cassidy Cox was in it the entire time, and she hits an arrow just above the 12 and glances into an 8, and then is panicking that she needs a 12 and shoots an 8. And there goes Cassidy. And so it was interesting because there was such a swing in those last few targets. You know, we're watching the scoreboard. We kind of knew everybody was, and then you're like, where are the people on the next bail? And then that happens to two of the 4 girls that were on the top bail. And, you know, I'm like looking around at Tanya. We're like, wait, what's happening? Because Tanya's on the next bail. And, you know, it was really cool. And that's the cool part about ASA is, like, I think next time you might see completely different women out there. Yeah. That's neat. And that's what I think the known class delivers a little bit more than the unknown. I think the depth of people that are capable of making the shoot downs is going to be deeper, because no one has a huge advantage, if that makes sense. We're all just shooting our bows and trying to figure out where to aim and shooting the game. Unknown, if you can truly outjudge people, it's a huge advantage. And you can see that with Levi, Dan, Sharon, Cara, like the same people that you've seen Emily, you know, for so many years. And so that advantage isn't present when you're shooting known, right? So I think it's going to be interesting, because I think we're going to see some different people. I think some different women and some different seniors are going to get the experience out there this year. And I think that's good, because once you're out there, it's pretty addicting, like that feeling and that adrenaline and that rush. And I think that's really going to, like, solidify that, like, that, I want to do this and I want to be here, not just for me, but for, you know, everyone that gets that opportunity. Yeah. You like that setting. You like that feeling. I have a feeling I would pee my pants if I was doing that. I do. I kind of live for that rush, I guess. You know, we do that like almost every weekend. It feels kind of weird. Like right now I've got a couple weeks off, and it's like, what do you do? Like, you're just kind of, okay, I'll work on my stuff and I'll set up bow and, you know, whatever, get new arrows ready. But yeah, I love that, like, push and that feeling. And I shoot better usually, I like in a tournament. I'm a terrible practicer, and I've been practicing for like a week. I'm terrible. Like, this is not good. So for me, I've always been like, I try hard when I'm practicing, but it's just not the same. Like, I know it doesn't matter. So I'm like, I wouldn't have shot that, but I just did in practice. And which makes me a terrible practicer, right? As soon as it matters, I'm like, no, now I'm giving this my actual all. And it's usually better. So, you know, there's different kind of people out there. But for me, there's levels, obviously, right? Like, I will say there's times where I totally implode because I was too nervous and I did, you know, shake and did something wrong, whatever. But that middle ground, I really thrive in that. I do like it. Well, you said you have a couple weeks off. What do we do? I believe I saw that you did a tournament last weekend where you were competing. You were competing against men and women and ended up winning that tournament with, you know, Tate Morgan was one of the shooters in there. Dave Cousins, you know, Mr. Field Archery. What was that tournament, and how did you manage to do so well in it? So it's a Reading style event. It's called the Outlaw Archery Tour. So we've had this since I was young. It's had a few names, I think, over the years. Right now it's called Outlaw Archery. It's been that for the last quite a few years. And so there are Reading style ranges all over, like, the West Coast. People don't realize that. Like, most of the bigger towns, like in our area, for example, I live in Red Bluff, really small town. Red Bluff has a range. Reading has a range. Paradise had a range. Like, Yuba Sutter has a range. Like, there's ranges all over, right? Mount Shasta has a range. So they pick some of those ranges and we go shoot at them. So we were shooting at Wood Lake, which is actually down past Fresno. So it's like 6 hours away for us, which is kind of a poke, you know, just for like a local fun tournament. But we weren't really planning on going. So I've been waiting. I just had a teal bow show up, and I wanted my teal bow to be my outdoor bow for like FIDA and field and Reading and like all those type things. And so I was waiting for that bow to show up. And then we were kind of kicking around the idea of going, not going. And here's the thing. Someone had asked me this. Let me clarify. Because I ended up taking my ASA bow, throwing a different rest on it. I have that AE Freak Show QD, so I can just yank it off, throw a different one on. Threw my skinny arrows on, my X Impacts, and quick tuned it, sorta, and then just shot some marks and we went down there all in the same day or same like 2-hour window. And people are like, why didn't you shoot your ASA setup? I love magnification, one, and my ASA setup has a lot less magnification. So that would drive me insane. The dots would look so little and so far away compared to what I'm used to. And the other thing being, it's windy, it's rainy, it's distance, it's side hill, it's challenging. Like the 23s just aren't up for that. People don't get it. But like the skinny arrows truly shoot better at distance. That's what they're designed to do. We shot out to 96 yards there. So like I wasn't going to go roll in with something that I knew I was going to get my butt kicked. There's no point in doing that.
Yeah.
So Friday rolls around. We're like, do we go? Do we not go? We don't have a bow set up. Nothing's ready. And around noon, we decided we weren't going. And then around noon, our friend Alan Brunetta calls and he's like, you guys really are coming and you should come and we're all going to have a good time. And I was just like, all right, let's pack the car. So we loaded the car, drove to my parents' house, tuned, shot marks. We didn't end up getting out of there until like 4. Took us like an hour and a half to pack the car, hour and a half, whatever. Tune, bow, shoot marks, set it up. And then we had a 6-hour drive. So we rolled in at like 11:15, 11:20 at night, had to be up super early the next day. And then the first day was incredibly windy. We shot 40 targets. And the next day was rain the whole day. And we shot 20 targets. So obviously your expectations are a little low anyway with that. And it just worked. Like it aimed, it shot, everything felt good. I personally wanted to go because I just switched to a hinge in January. And I've never shot a hinge for this style format. And it is very different, like shooting uphill, downhill, all the things. So I wanted to try that before Reading.
Yeah.
The real. So that was more my motivation, was like, you know what, even if it's bad, as long as I know, like feel how I'm working the hinge and how I do uphill. And I was truthfully worried that like drawing uphill, downhill, that I'd end up like punching myself in the mouth kind of thing too. And like through that. So you know, we each had different like motivations and reasons for going, but I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. But that is also the format that I grew up shooting since I was a little kid. And I genuinely believe, I just said this to them when I was there, but I think if I grew up in any other place, I don't know that I would be the archer that I am today, because that taught me so much. Like, and not hating on ASA in any way. So
no, it's like field.
Anyone that's watching this. But if I grew up shooting a max of 50 yards and as a kid shooting 20 and doing it, okay, well, I was like 12 shooting 50 and then like 13, 14 shooting 100, right?
Yeah.
And so it taught me that like I went and practiced at 80 as like a 14-year-old kid but they don't do that on the other side of the world. That's not a thing. Your shot has to be way better and way more consistent to shoot at distance than it does at 30, 40 yards.
Yes.
Uphills, downhills, side hills, wind, rain, sun. All different angles. Like you walk through like a golf course, you're not down a road, you know, it's different. And so I feel like the Reading style format that we have over here, I called it 3D my whole life. It's kind of known around the world as Safari, but I really think it pushes everything to the limits.
Yeah.
And I think it really did a good job on like training me how to do all of that well and kind of put it all together. And so I feel like I go to FIDA and it's like, okay, I can do this. I've shot in the wind at different angles. We get to stand facing the target the same way. It's easier to read the wind. I got this. Like ASA, you know, I've heard people at London, they're like, oh, the angle. And I'm like, what angle? Like it's like 3 degrees. But compared to the other ASAs, they're right. It like is an angle. Where we're used to shooting 20-something degree angles. And I'm like, what? And so there's just little snippets of that I take away, you know, that I look back and go, man, I'm so thankful that I grew up shooting this. And then that Outlaw Archery Tour is so great. The one thing I didn't mention about that, so they have a team element, which is why this grew to be so large. And so they have a mulligan system. So on like a normal Reading style, we usually shoot 42 targets in a day. And so it's like, okay, this is your score. You get a 0, which is a pro, or you get 1 mulligan, 2 mulligan, 3 mulligan, all the way up to 6 mulligans, depending on the highest score that you shot over a certain amount of time. And then no 2 zeros can team up. So it's basically a pro-am or an am-am. When the 2 amateurs shoot together, like we had one guy out there who ended up winning the tournament, they were both 6s.
Oh,
so they had
wow.
12 mulligans going into it, right? Oh. And so the way it works is it's best ball, just like Reading teams, but you don't have to shoot your mulligans. So let's say, PJ, we're teamed up and you shoot a 21 and I shoot a 20. We just use one of your mulligans to take the 1 arrow to an 11 and we're good. But if I'm the amateur and I have the mulligans and you shoot a 21 and I shoot a 20, well, now we have to burn 2 mulligans to gain 1 point. What do we do? Do we lose the point? So there's a lot of strategy and stuff there and it's super fun. But like we just had, what did they say? Like 30 something teams and it was horrible weather, like way farther than we normally shoot. The turnouts are normally incredible for being like a local kind of thing. So it's really cool. I grew up shooting that and with the men since I was young. I think I was like 13 when I shot my first one. And my partner was Buck Hayrand. And I was like, I'm not going to do well. And he was like, you'll do fine. And we ended up making the final shoot off. And like I hit the dot and it was like so cool. And so that kind of is like what got me hooked on that. And like I shot with the men. So that pushed me in our area. But there's not a lot of women. And so I was like, I want to be like them. I want to shoot their scores. And that's kind of how all of this got started. So it's pretty cool. I couldn't say enough about it.
It's interesting you say that because I used to shoot field art. We don't have the safari style, but we have field archery, very similar. And it's not big anymore. In the early 90s it was, so I shot a ton of field and then it kind of went away. And I don't think I've ever been as good an archer as I was when I was shooting a lot of that stuff. Just for what you said. I mean, our max was 80 yards. But man, you make a little mistake at 80, you can make that mistake at 20 and it doesn't really affect you, but you make it at 80 and you know it. And it's like,
you missed by 2 feet and you're like, what happened? Like, that didn't feel that bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So
field is also one of my favorites. Like I did grow up shooting field stuff as well. That's, I'd say, pretty popular over here. And I still shoot the NFA field. And then I got into the FIDA field, their U.S. Archery World Archery Field, which is even more challenging. It does have an unknown day, actually, kind of, sort of. But so it's been interesting. I just feel like the nice part is it's like, okay, I've learned how to shoot. I've learned to do distance. I've learned this. I've learned that. But you know what? ASA has an element that's so different than anything. Try to aim without a dot.
Right.
And so there's a few things that I've noticed that I think are different. And I think a lot of people will resonate with this. So I'll go ahead and say it. But when you're aiming at a dot, like I've trained my mind for so many years that as your pin leaves the dot, my subconscious mind is bringing that dot to the middle before my conscious even realizes it left. Like it floats, but it always comes back. And I very much strongly drive it back to the middle because I know where the middle is. Like I know where that point is and I can see it. So at ASA, when I was first practicing before this tournament, I noticed that I'm like, I swear that didn't break there. Or like, why did that miss so far? Or what did whatever? And you can't really see how bad your pin float is at ASA because you can't exactly see lines or see the 12s. You don't know area aiming, right? And so I noticed that I'm not as forceful of a shooter of a drive back to the middle because you don't know where it is. And so I think that's an element that's going to take me, especially, I know me, and I'm sure a bunch of other people too that come from Target, but some time to kind of learn because it doesn't always hit where you think. And then you're like, okay, did I aim there? Was it drifting that direction? And I just couldn't tell. And the other thing that I noticed is like at ASA, I will let it drift way farther because my subconscious has no realm in bringing it back. So it has to go far enough that my conscious mind's like, whoa, what are you doing over there? Come, bring it back. And I bring it back, which is way slower than what it is when you're shooting at a target. Yeah. And a lot of the times, like the women will always say this, but it's like, we don't aim that good. We move. I'll break arrows in the 9 that hit the 10 or the X all day long, but it's because it's already coming back to the middle. It's on its way there, so it gets there. When it breaks on its way out, it's a bad thing. Well, if you're heading out and you go farther than normal and take longer than normal to bring it back, the chances of missing are much higher. And I think I was experiencing that in practice for sure at ASA. And so that was something that I was like, I have to pick a point and stare at it and focus and drive to that point because it's so different than what I'm used to doing. Yeah. So there's a huge learning curve that I could go on about all the things like that forever, but so many things that I feel like, yeah, I can shoot a bow, but man, I got a long way to go before I understand this game and I feel good at it. And I feel confident even. I'm confident every time I step up there. My one thing is I will make a good shot. I will shoot a good arrow. Will I aim in the right spot? Maybe not. Will I play the game right off the arrow I'm aiming off of? Maybe not. Can't control that because I'm learning, right? I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, but I will make a good shot. And for this whole year, that's pretty much going to be my approach. That's all I can control.
So you're at a hinge now that you mentioned. Obviously, you were famous for years for shooting an index finger release. You went to a thumb button. Now you're at the hinge. What is happening? What made you make this move to the handheld away from the index finger?
Yeah. So let me just add in there that I actually started on a hinge when I was 8.
Okay.
So going to date myself here, but like pre-D-loop, I had an old Stanislawski with the loop like on the release. And so I'm like this uncoordinated kid, and you're trying to like hook it around and hold your bow. And yeah, I hit myself in the face. So many bloody noses, I can't even tell you. But back then, you know how punching's kind of like a cool new thing now? That was like not the cool new thing back then. And so my dad was like, if you want to be good and you want to have longevity in your archery, because my parents shot, we never thought it would turn into this or it would be a job or anything like that. But they shot every weekend. That's what we did. And they're like, if you want to stay in this, you're going to learn back tension. And it was like, oh, okay, all right. So I learned that as a kid. And his whole thing was, once you can do it correctly, if you can translate it to a button, go ahead and shoot the button. But if you can, you're staying with the hinge. So I picked it up pretty easily. It was all fine. So I shot tournaments from like 8 or 9 to 16, 17, something like that. I don't even know, with a button. And I had a hinge in the background, just tinkering around every now and again. But once I had the back tension thing down, I was like, I don't need that anymore. Well, then honestly, it seems like everything happens at Vegas, but I was shooting and I'm like, man, you know what? I swear I'm pulling, but like my finger tension is not great. And I hate it because sometimes it's like I'm really stiff and my release doesn't fire. And other times I'm relaxed and my shot timing's better. And I was like, a wrist strap, your fingers don't have to touch it. Like that element of inconsistency that I'm battling isn't really there. I would think I'm going to try a wrist strap. So when I switched to a wrist strap, I shot it 100% back tension. Like I would come in, I would wrap my finger, get it set. That thing never moved again. And I'm just pulling and executing through the shot. The strap sometimes like pulls against your wrist, right? Which creates that like relaxation type feeling. So you just pull through, fired, no problem. I loved it. Truthfully, if I could, I'd probably still be shooting that. But my shoulder hurt. And so when I anchor for whatever reason with a wrist strap, like this back shoulder is like really high and I can't kind of get it down. When I roll everything and turn my arm this way, I can like kind of roll my shoulder with my hand. Yeah. So I have like an impingement or like a pinching soreness in there that was way magnified with the wrist strap. So I shot that to the point that I physically couldn't even get to an anchor point. My shoulder was so screwed up. And I was like, you know what? Time to go back to a button. So I did. And that was in the very end, the last tournament of 2019, I went to the button. And then I like won Vegas that year in 2020. And I think I took second or third or something like that, a second Lancaster. And I won the World Indoor Series final. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you just switched to a button. And I'm like, I shot one for 10 years. Like maybe you didn't know that, but like kind of did it before. So then going to the hinge, I had never competed with the hinge. I was like scared of them because I always used to hit myself in the face. And so I was saying to Tate that, anyone who would listen, whatever, then I'm like, man, when I get under pressure, I swear I still pull, but I really struggle wrapping my thumb on the thumb barrel consistently. And I was like, I'm better at that with my pointer finger. I feel like your pointer finger has more has more sensor receptors in it. So as far as applying the same amount of pressure, I was better at that on the wrist strap. With the thumb, I've always struggled getting the same amount of pressure. And it's like one time it'd be a little more and my shot breaks fast. And okay, the next time you're scared because it just went fast. Now you wrap lighter. Now you got to pull pounds more to get it to fire. And so I was really inconsistent at that. So my deal breaker was I had that steady aim device on my bow and that was on there and it shows you your shot timing. Yes. And I literally looked at that and it was like 4, 11, 10, 6, 5, 12. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be a pro. Like, what am I doing? And so I got the new bows from Bowtech. Obviously there's a learning curve. I'd had the same bows for 4 years and I was still fighting them. I was trying to figure out how to get them to aim for me. I hadn't accomplished that yet, but you know what? When we're struggling, the season goes on. There's no time to like take a break and figure it out. You're shooting, even if you're not at your best, like you just show up and you do it and then you try to learn and try to get better. So even at Lancaster, which I finally won this year, like I worked on it and then I shot qualifying and my qualifying looked really good. 657, had a 30X game the first half. That's super cool, whatever. And then I go change stuff. Then I shoot my matches and I change something again. And then I shoot. And like I was messing with it because I knew it wasn't good enough. But my execution was, and that's why I was getting away with that. And so I ended up fixing my aiming stuff between Lancaster and Vegas. And now I feel like it's just been so much better because it's calming when I draw back. But pre-figuring that out, I was almost starting to get a little bit of that target panic feel because I was never used to seeing my sight picture move that much, that fast, or that far.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, how am I supposed to hit an X when it's moving like this? Like, you might just want to punch it. And I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. And then I'd like punch one and I'm like, oh God, that felt dirty. That felt wrong. Like, no. And then I'd be like, okay, shoot some clean ones. And I'm like, yeah, but you just need to hit this arrow. So maybe you should just punch it. And I'd like draw back and be like, no, you're okay. And I'm like, nah, just send it. It looks really bad. So I was kind of starting to battle that. And that's something I've never had, that like back end punchy, collapsy target panic. And I did not want it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a hinge until I figure out what I need to fix on my bow to make it jive with me. That's what I'm going to do. Well, then when I finally figured it out, I was like, man, you know what? My shot timing is so much better with the hinge. I think I'm just going to stay with it. So that's kind of where I am now. I feel like I'm shooting it kind of the same way I shot the button. The button, I just deep wrap my thumb and just pulled same way I do with the hinge. But I don't have to worry about my thumb pressure being inconsistent. So I think if you guys watched me prior under pressure versus now, I think it's pretty easy to see my shot timing is significantly better. Like when I used to go into those U.S. Archery World Archery Finals, you get 20 seconds per arrow. And I'm like, Tate, you watch that clock. You're going to be counting down. I'm going to get to the time because I'm not going to get through my arrow, and I did all the time. Shooting at Lancaster, Tate's like, you shot so quick. Like, we had 30 seconds, but even then, like, even if it was 20, he's like, your shot timing was good. Like, I would never have had to count. And I was like, yeah, that never happens. Like, this is really cool. So for the first time in years, I feel like under pressure, I can step up there and just be like, I know I'm going to shoot my bow. Like, it's going to go off. And that was always my fear with the button, was like, man, I'm going to wrap my thumb too light. And then I'm just going to sit there and pull forever. And it's going to take so long for it to go off. And that happened. Like, realistically, there were certain times, even at indoor, where he'd be like 3, 2, 1, and I'd like punch it and shoot an 8, like inside. And I'm like, yeah, that was terrible because I don't punch. I'm a terrible puncher. And so anyway, it's been an interesting learning curve. Like, I switched to it obviously for not the most positive reasons at first. And then I'm like, well, this is great. Like, why didn't I do this sooner? Till I punch myself and shoot one in the dirt. That's going to happen. That's inevitable. It will happen. I'll hate it for that small moment, but overall, I do think it's better.
It's cool to hear someone at your level struggling with the things that I can tell you, me personally, I struggle with a lot of that, and I'm sure everyone else does, such as the feeling that you described, dirty when you rip that hinge. I know that exactly. It's like, I'm going to do it, and you do it, and it hits in the middle, and you're like, that wasn't right.
Yeah. Actually, okay, when I was doing that, I was still shooting the button. That was my last tournament with the button.
Oh, gotcha.
And even I was like, that's why I went to the hinge, because I was like, I can't. It felt like I trained for years. Like, you wrap that thumb and you never move it. And then I'm moving it, and I can punch maybe like, I don't know, 5 arrows. And then I'll be like, oh gosh, I like do the Gillingham flinch. And I'm like, this is why I don't do that. This is why I don't shoot that way. Like, I don't know how anybody does that.
Well, I was just going to say, so knowing that, from your level of knowledge, what does that make you think about a guy like Kyle Douglas? What he does and how he does it? He's
wired different. Okay.
That's crazy.
I will say, Kyle learned back tension, and that's how he shot for years. And he'll tell you, like, and he can still do this. He can switch back over and shoot arrows back tension. He's fine. He's like, the bad thing about back tension is sometimes it breaks when you're not in the middle.
Right.
And that is the reality we all deal with. But I mean, social media wasn't even really a big thing like when I started shooting. So I think it's like people are, in the last couple of years, maybe they just saw you or they just start paying attention. But I mean, I've been out there shooting in the pro class since I was 15. At, NFA, I got my pro card when I was 15, and I was shooting even up in division long before that. And so it's been a lot of years. And I feel like if I had done the whole punching route, like, I wouldn't still be here at 27 talking to you because I'm at the top level still. It takes a certain type person to be okay with that. And I'm like way too type A. My brain thinks way too much to like handle that. Which Gillingham does it. I don't know how, because we're wired very similar. But Kyle learned back tension. He can shoot it. If he has to, he can kind of revert back to it. But he just said, like, and I don't want to speak for him. This is like at one point when I was talking to him about it, but he basically said that he trained to where he doesn't consciously say, okay, now okay, punch it. The way that his works is that he aims, and when his mind sees and his eyes see a certain sight picture that he wants to see, it just happens.
Yeah.
Which is like the most back tension type punch description I've ever heard. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why we've seen Kyle succeed and be so successful. And, when he started winning, everyone was like, that won't last. And
Exactly.
I'm like, well, if I could win Vegas twice and indoor nationals and this and that, I'd punch for 2 years too. Who cares? Right. But like looking at that, he's done so well. But I think it's because of how he's doing it is very different than how like the average person is like, oh, get it to the middle. Oh, okay, now go. Oh,
slam it.
Stuff happens. So I think there's different ways to do everything. And you know what? The human mind is a vast place that is drastically different in everybody. And I think that's why some people can get away with that stuff and some people just can't.
Yeah.
I'm not wired for it. No. I'm not one of those people.
No, if I start punching, there will be a flinch, and it'll be a bad one. As long as I can stay in that zone, yeah, they hit pretty good, but I know there's going to come a time where that miss is going to be bad.
Shooting some of the FIDA style tournaments, again, I'm dating myself. I still say FIDA. It's not even FIDA anymore, but like, you know what I mean? The USA Archery World Archery format, target format. There's been times where the wind is so bad, like I'm off my actual paper target more than I'm on it. Like people are lying to you if we're not punching then. You have to, like, you're just trying to survive. Yeah. Literally, like hit the scoring rings. And I'll punch some and, whatever. And then the wind will lull and you get a few good ones off and then you're blowing. And like, I vividly remember like one final that was just horrendous wind. And I punch collapsed 2 arrows, shot 2 5s at like high right, 2 o'clock. As a right-handed archer, when you collapse and you get weak, not just this backhand, my front hand also goes and just comes together. And I'm like, I just shot 2 5s in a final. Like, that's cool. But that's what happens when I punch. That's why I don't do it. But it was either like risk the 2 5s or a miss punching or just miss the ball anyway because I was hardly ever on my target. So at that point, it's like, whatever. I suck either way. It's fine. But yeah, it's crazy. Like the different days and different styles. My whole thing is just like do whatever you have to do that day, that moment to get through and do your best and fix it later. And it's always been that it's always been my like motto, my theory that I kind of live by.
I talk all the time about a final that I was at in Salt Lake, a World Cup final, and Braden Galantine was shooting a match. The wind was just that venue. There was like a bowl coming in there. This wind would just circle around in there. And Braden was shooting a hinge, and whoever he was shooting against was shooting an index finger. And you could just see that guy owned Braden. Braden couldn't do anything right because of the wind. And he just looked helpless. I felt helpless for him. It was just...
We've all been there. All of us non-punchers have been in that situation. And, it sucks when it's happening. But also, like, I feel good going home at the end of the night knowing that, like, I don't have to go battle target panic for the next week or for the next month. And so there's a catch-22 to everything. And I mean, I will say, like, I have shots break sometimes in the wrong spot. And if they'd broke 1 second earlier or 1 second later, like it would have been fine. And people are like, ooh, and it's like, I didn't even make a bad shot.
Yeah.
My side picture moved exactly the same as it normally does. And it just broke at the wrong time. That's back tension. And I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people, when you're like a pro, expect that not to happen. Like we're human, that still happens.
Yeah.
It's nice as a puncher that like you don't really have to worry about that. But there's other problems, right? There's other things. And so there's pluses and minuses to everything we do. And I think a lot of people also believe that the pros are like immune to that, or that we found the answers and that we know what we're doing. And like, no, like we are constantly improving and learning and growing. And the difference is we just test stuff.
Yeah.
If we're not scared to try it, I know I can always put it back or go back or, whatever it is. And so I'm constantly trying different stuff to figure out what might work best for me.
Well, speaking of that, I know for a while you had your V-bars, you had the weights running up. I don't know if they're that way still now or if they've come back down. They are not.
Yep.
I'm guessing that was part of that process.
Yeah. And so this is so funny that you bring that up. That was probably like of private messages that I see often, like so many people, why are your bars running up? Why are your bars running up? And my first question would be, why haven't you tried your bars running up? Why? Like, how come it's normal in archery that they can be level or down? Why is down okay, but up isn't? Why? because people just don't test it.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I kind of just like wonder, like, why? Like, I think we could do better in that way. But here's why mine were up. If you've ever played with back bars, 1, 2, whatever, doesn't matter, you'll know that the higher they go, the more, if I have 10 ounces, say 5 and 5 on both bars, the higher they go, it might feel like 15 ounces. The lower it goes, my 10 might feel like 5. And in the middle, it might feel like 10. So I love front weight. I'm obsessed. I love front weight. It slows my movement. It helps me under pressure. It holds my bow steadier in the wind. Like, I got on a front weight kick and I am riding that hard. And so I didn't want to have to take my front weight off. I've got like 23 ounces on my front bar. And I also physically could not hold up a bow that was heavy enough to counterbalance enough weight on the back to have my bow aim how I wanted with my front weight. So my options were add weight to the back, take weight off the front, or run my weight on the back higher that makes it feel like counterbalance, like it's more weight than it really is. That was it. I tested it and it worked. And I did that. So the reason they're down now is because I spent a couple seasons slowly adding to where I can actually physically now hold the weight. So now I can drop them down to where they look normal for people because I have more back weight on them to actually counterbalance my front weight. Yeah. So there's very simple things like that it's like, instead of ask me, just go run them up and see what it changes on your side picture, see how it feels. And you're going to be like, wow, it feels way heavier on the back end. Okay, there's your answer. That's why. So I actually switched from 12-inch bars off the back. Now I'm running 15-inch bars mounted off the front.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't say that aims better. It's just when I said I was fighting, trying to get the new bows to aim for me and to figure them all out when I first got them. And so I tested all of these different things. And when I was struggling, 15s off the front just worked best. And now that I figured it out, it was already set up that way and it was aiming good. So I just left it. Could I go back to 12s off the back now that I fixed it and figured out all my stuff and meshing with the bow is really good? Yeah, probably. And I could probably get it to aim the same. Yeah. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So in terms of testing things, I know that you and Tim talk a lot. Have you ever been tempted to try his crazy setup?
I've asked for one. I have. And he keeps saying, like, we're working on it. I'll get you one. It'll happen. And hasn't happened yet. So Tim, if you're listening later, where's my mount? So here's the thing. We all tease Tim, but you know what? Tim tests archery stuff more than any person. I'm like, Tim has 48 hours in his day and the rest of us just have 24. Like, I don't know how he does everything he does. And I'm crazy. Like, I stay up late and shoot till 2 a.m. all the time because I don't want to quit working on stuff either. But man, the amount of stuff that he's tested is just absolutely mind-blowing.
Yes.
And hearing him say, like, no, genuinely, this aim's better than anything I've ever aimed, I don't doubt it.
Sure.
I 100% believe him. And I will say, the one thing that I've actually been trying to get, and I'm going to try a little harder now that we're having this discussion, but when I ran my back bars off the back, the wider that platform, one time I had something break and I had to throw on my thread through my riser stripped out. There was no bushing at that time and I stripped it out. And so I went and I grabbed 2 back bar mounts from, I think it was from True Ball Excel, because they had some there and I needed, like, it had 3 screw holes on the old Reckoning. So I screwed one in upside down on the left hole and then the other one on the right hole and got it all set up. So my bracket ended up being my 2 brackets that I had to run way wider than when I had my middle hole and I could just run my normal mounting bracket. And my bow aimed way better with the wider back platform. So I've actually been asking a few people, like, hey, can somebody make me that? Can we, like, get that? Is there a way we can kind of make that happen? And I don't know if it would feel the same off the front, because like I said, I'm running them off the front. If it didn't, I would just transition to the back again and run that. But knowing that I've tested that accidentally at one point and it aimed way better, I kind of understand Tim's idea. So my thought is, even if I didn't run the 2 front bars, that, like, just having the wider back bar platform might feel good, kind of like a meet in the middle. So yeah, I wish if I was, like, more technically inclined or had, like, a machinist here that I could just be like, make me this. The cool part about being in Salt Lake is there's, like, everyone and everything there. Yeah. So it's easy, I feel like, to get stuff made Like out here, we have no one or nothing. So, you're walking into a normal machine shop. Hey, can you like take some time to make me this? Yeah, they don't care. It's not going to happen. But I think it's interesting. Like, I'm not opposed to trying anything because that's how you learn and that's how we find these new things. Like, you look at companies and you look at how bows have changed and arrows and all the different rests and whatever. Like, I just look back even the time I've been doing this and it's come a long way. Some of it hasn't, some of it has. But if people weren't out there trying new things, like we would be pretty stagnant. So I'm willing to be part of that test of random stuff. If that's what I need to be.
I've talked to Tim many times, and I always say, all right, I have to prepare myself if I go ask Tim a question because you're going to have to commit 20 to 30 minutes. That's just the way it is. And I remember at the Classic, the ASA Classic last year, I saw him. He didn't have the big stabilizer setup. I thought, oh, man, I'm kind of pressed for time, but I have to ask him about this. All right, I got to be ready 30 minutes. So I went over, Tim, I notice you don't have the big stabilizer set up. What's going on? So I was prepared for, the centrifugal force of the moon. Yeah. And then he said, I forgot it.
And he did say that his bow aimed way worse that weekend than what it normally does. And I believe him, right? Like, why would we not? Obviously, he wants to shoot his best and wants to win and wants to compete at his best. And so if he's shooting that and he's went back and forth and genuinely feels like it's better, I know it's better for him.
For sure.
It's just how it would be for everybody else. So I don't know if I ever get one, if I'm going to post right away. I might, just try it first and see what I think. But yeah, I'll keep you guys posted.
Try it in private.
I will tell everybody if I do try it and give them the honest feedback. So,
well, I know you had said, hey, winning the Lancaster Archery Classic, that was one of the things on your resume that you wanted to tick off. What is there out there for you that keeps you driving? Obviously, you want to win everything, but what are the big accomplishments that you still see out there for you?
This sounds kind of bad, but I've pretty much won everything that I want to win, at least once.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say, so like for years, it was always like Vegas, like I wanted Vegas so bad and I finally got it. And it was like, okay, like that was the biggest monkey off my back. And then I was like, okay, I've got indoor nationals. I've got USA Archery, and I've done the international finals a few times. I've got Iowa. I've got all these events that we shoot. But like, I need the Lancaster Classic. And to me, Vegas and Lancaster are like the two biggest indoors that people want to win. And I'd been so close so many times at Lancaster and then like not got it done that was to me the last big monkey like on my back that I needed off. Are there events I've shot that I haven't won? Sure. Lots of world archery stuff, different stuff like that, of course. But that's never really mattered that much to me, truthfully.
Right.
It just hasn't. Like, to me, going out and winning the field means so much more. Or redding, or, the things that OPA, like the things that I love to shoot, which is more that 3D safari distance challenge type format. I kind of just did target because there was nothing else to do if you wanted a full schedule. I don't really like shooting that, if that is fair. And so I actually have fun shooting my bow, shooting the ASAs. While I'm shooting a SPIDA type tournament, I don't think it's fun. It's work, it's okay, here we go, 6 arrows at a time and windy, and I get bored. Like, you stand in the same place. I feel the same way with indoor, but you stand at the same place and shoot the same target over and over. Like at Reading, if you suck at a target, you're like, bye, Felicia, I never have to see that again. I'm done with that target and I'm going to go to the next one, and it's going to be different and a different distance and a different angle and a different side hill, and I'll be fine. Same thing with field. And so just growing up shooting that stuff, I don't know. I just have such a love for that type of archery. And I think those are still the wins that like probably mean the most to me. So the World Field Championships is like a USA Archery thing, or a World Archery thing and USA Archery thing that probably means the most to me of all of the events that they have, which is crazy because it's probably like the least respected as far as like people care if you win. But that's the one that I actually care the most about, truthfully. So like this last year, I won the World Field Championships. They were in Yankton, South Dakota, which is kind of cool. We had them on home soil. And I was the reigning champion from Cortina, Italy. They'd been canceled with COVID, and we finally got them back. And like, I really, really wanted that one.
Yeah.
And I did. And that was like a big deal for me. Reading every year, like I want that so bad. The field, there's certain events that I feel like I'm always going to have that drive just because personally for me, it means more. And we all have that, right? We all have those events that it's just like, I love this one and I want to do my best. And like, I really want to take the win at that. And truthfully, like I kind of had that same drive at that last ASA because I'm like, this is the first one. This is like the kickoff. Like I want to be the first one. Like how cool would that be? Like I pushed so hard for this and like, I want to be ready and I want to give it my best. And like, I want to put on a show. And I mean, it worked out. Like I'm so thankful for that. But, I kind of want to find that like newfound like passion and drive and like kind of dive into like learning and embracing and like growing in ASA because there is a lot to learn. Like I said, it's not just shooting. I have so much to learn on all that other stuff. And it's kind of cool. I don't want to say at my age, but like at the years that I've been shooting to now have something like that. That's like new and exciting and I can kind of work toward. I haven't had that in a long time. So I'm pretty motivated.
I saw a lot of the, comments. I think people expect you to come into that first ASA and do what you did. But I got to imagine that's also pressure too on you. People, what if you didn't do that? What would people be saying? You make it look easy because you're Paige Pearce, but that doesn't mean it is easy for you.
No, I've always said, I just made a post, with Tanya and I after Vegas. And one of the lines in there was like, it was way easier to get to the top than it is to stay at the top. Like when you're at the top, it's the kind of how I explain going into the shoot downs, right? Like you're just trying to hang on, like you're just latched on and just hoping that nobody catches you. And, when I'm grinding, like trying to get there, and I very vividly remember all of those years, that it was easier. When I walked into a tournament, nobody expected you to win. Nobody cared. If I won, it was like, whoa, she's the underdog. But if I lost, no one cared. So it is a whole different like mental thing when you walk into tournaments. Like people, are you going to win this weekend? I'm like, well, man, I hope so. Like that's the goal. But I'm human, right? And everyone's really good. So who knows? Like we'll see. And it's interesting now. I feel like a lot of the times if I don't do great or if I don't win or if I don't, it's like I almost have to explain why. Oh, why did you shoot a 9? Because I shot it. Like it was in the 9 and my release fired and I shot the 9. What do you mean? Like, so it's kind of weird because I still very much live in the reality of we're human. Everybody's good. The level of competition is growing. The depth of competition is growing. Like new people, like kids are coming in with better. I shot with a broom handle stabilizer for years. Okay. Like the kids nowadays have stuff that like I couldn't even dream of using when I was a kid. And I see the mental training that they're getting and the equipment that they're using. And I'm like, yeah, they're going to be good. They better be good. Of course they're going to be good. And so, it's just that constant struggle of like, we can't quit working. We can't quit grinding or like, we're going to get past. Like, and it will happen. Obviously it happens to everybody, right? It's just a matter of time. So it's like trying to hang on and like stay at your best for as long as you can. And so, I was pretty nervous going into the first ASA, and obviously Tanya switched bow companies and it's just been pounding with her new Darton. And I'm like, oh, she's going to be like really tough to beat. And there's all these other girls and Casta's great. And there's this, there's that, I was mentally like walking through how I thought the weekend was going to go. It did not go how I thought. I got lucky in the essence that I didn't struggle. And girls that are way more capable of shooting higher scores than what you saw just happen to struggle or have one off day and one whatever. And that happens like that. We're human. That's archery. It just happened, and it just so happened that I didn't. But like, I think one thing that's funny is after that, I saw so many people talking about my score. Like, oh my God, a girl shot 40 up or 42 up, whatever I shot. 42, I think. 42. Yeah, to me, I can't remember now. I shot 50 up last year on one of the men's courses. Like we shot the same course the guys did, and I shot 50 up. It just wasn't really covered as much because we weren't a pro class then. So I think people didn't realize it. But to me, like I was just running my game plan and I wanted to hit 50% of them, and I did, and I ran my game plan and it worked out to be that way. But I don't think that we need to have those like mental limits of like what girls are supposed to shoot. Like I think you're going to see us push those boundaries because I think we can do so much more than what people think, if that makes sense. I already have. Like, I've already done better than that. So I know that it's like, I know we can, you know, I know that we're all more than capable of that. So yeah, I think what's neat too is so many other kinds of archery, you're just trying to not miss. Like you almost have to be perfect, and there's nothing to like, you're striving to just never miss, if that makes sense. Like, here's par. I hate, oh gosh, don't tell Gillingham I ever said that, because I hate when he says par archery, but you know, it is. It's like, okay, this is even, and don't miss or you're going to lose. The cool thing about ASA is like, you can put in the work and you can actually like have room to improve. Like, you can hit more 12s and shoot less 8s, and you can, you know, like see that there's room for improvement. And again, I think that's really motivating. Like, I'm pretty excited about that. I want to work toward it. Unfortunately, I haven't even shot ASA since I left the ASA. The weather's been so bad and just pouring rain every day. I haven't even shot outside. So other than shooting the one tournament that also rained on us. So that's kind of sad, because I really want to practice it to, you know, get better and work on some stuff. But yeah, I think I speak for a lot of women, for sure, at least in my division, when I say like, we're all really motivated and we're all really excited. We know that we can do better. We know there's room to improve. And I really think we want to push those limits, those boundaries, those scores, and, you know, show people that like, we're not just there to like have a class. We're there to like have a class and make it count.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Paige, was there anything that we did not talk about today that you wanted to talk about? We got a lot of stuff covered in there.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a busy season. I know a lot of people are feeling that. I've got some exciting hunts lined up. So that's good. Normally, I kind of wait till the season's done to like put some of that stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I have New Zealand coming up in April. And I literally had one weekend off. Like tournament, weekend off, tournament. And I'm cramming New Zealand into that weekend.
Oh, man.
I won that hunt at a dinner pre-COVID, and it's been postponed. And so that was like kind of the roar or close to it. And you kind of need to go during that time. And at that time, Indoor Nationals was a week earlier. So I had more time between like that and Arizona Cup, or like the outdoor. Well, now the schedules have changed. And so I'm just kind of going to wing that, and we'll see. I have some stuff in Texas also. I'm sure I'll be back in Africa. So for me,
Red Stag in New Zealand, is that where you're going for? Okay. Nice.
I would love to like do some other stuff too, but obviously we are there. Like, I think I'm only in New Zealand for 4 days because it takes so long to fly.
Yeah, right.
I'm like literally driving home from Break the Barriers. We fly out the next morning. We get there like 2 days later. We hunt for like 3 or 4 days. And then I'm back on a plane. I land and leave for the ASA the next morning. So we'll see how that ASA goes. I'm going to be a hot mess of jet lag. But I feel like, you know, while I'm able to do this and I can just go, that it's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
You know, like, let's live it up. So I'm kind of excited for that. I'm going to have a super packed year, whether it be tournaments or hunts, or I just agreed to do my first seminar ever. And I get asked all the time. And I'm always like, no, I don't have time for that. When I retire, I always say that. Then I'll.
Your first, you've never done one?
Nope. I mean, I've helped, like, the NFAA does those high performance compound academies and different things like that. But as far as like just straight up doing like a full weekend seminar, no.
No kidding. I would have just guessed.
I know. And it's so hard. Truthfully, here's how I look at it. Like, normally almost every weekend's full, especially too, like now that I'm pulling back from some of the international stuff, I actually feel like I have more time than I shooting, even though there's more ASA, because it's such a shorter trip. Yeah. And there's no jet lag and you're not gone for 10 days competing anyway. So people ask, and I'm always just like, you know, the hard part is I maybe get like 1 weekend off a month, and I normally don't even get that. But when I do, if there's something in one of my setups that I need to work on, for me, that's the only time that I have.
Right.
So it's like, you know, do I take that weekend, not be home, fly somewhere else and help 20 people with their stuff? Or do I stay home and work on mine because my actual job is competing at my best? Okay. So that's kind of why I haven't done them. That's why I've always said, like, when I retire, when I pull back, because I don't have enough extra time to so much give it to other people. It will hurt my like level of competition if I did that all year. It would. And but this one, it just happened to work out. There's some other exciting stuff. I'm going to be in Bowtech, or in Texas already with Bowtech. Gotcha. And so I was like, well, if I'm already going to be there, then it's only like a couple days, and then I can just do the seminar. And then, so it all worked out like with a good time. So now I'm like, oh, now I got to prepare for the seminar. Like I got to make all my slideshows and do all those things. So I feel like there's always like cool, new, exciting things happening. And I'm excited. I know it's going to go good either way, but
is that something that people can sign up for? Like that you can announce, or is it not announced yet? I don't know.
No, it's fine. It's at Shooter's Alley, which is like near the border, like in Texas. And I think they're letting 25 people come. And I just spoke to him and he's like, I never even posted it and it's basically full. Oh. And I was like, oh,
of course.
Okay. I don't know why those people want to listen to me for 2 days, but that sounds good. I'll be there. So I was calling him just to see, do you think there's enough interest I can book my flights, or is it still on the fence? And he's like, oh no, it's already a go. I was like, cool. All right. So I think, I just shared it, I think on my story yesterday that they posted that, but
gotcha.
So it's kind of cool. It's nice. Like once I have everything done, like the building of because I know you don't need like slideshows and you don't need all of that, but if I'm going to do it, I want to do it well. Yeah. And that's the hard part about me too, is like, if I do something, I want to be like fully invested in what I'm doing, and the people deserve that if they're going to come. So like, if I couldn't give them that at that time, that's not fair to them. So the cool thing is once I have that built and I've done it, then it's going to be easier to maybe do a few more here or there. But it truly is like so hard with what you're trying to compete at your best all the time and never being home. Like I said, the little bit of time you do get home, it's just such a nice like mental reprieve. We live under such stress that people don't realize all the time. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I thrive off of it. So I'm not complaining by any means, but it's like, will I win again? Like what's going to be the next paycheck? How is this going to work? Like, what if I just lose the next 15 tournaments? So that could easily happen. Like we just don't know. And so those couple days that you get home are so key to just like take that mental break and like recharge before you go do it all over again, the weekend. So it's going to be cool. I'm excited. I think that's kind of the gist of some of the exciting stuff that I have lined up for the year, but hopefully I'll do some other cool things so we can be back on here sometime soon. But no, I do appreciate you having me. Like, I'm so stoked for this new class. I'm happy for the ASA. I'm glad that, everything lined up, that the sponsors are supporting it, that, we finally pulled the trigger. And the coolest thing that I haven't said yet is being at the tournaments and having parents and like kids and young girls and women even coming up and being like, thank you. Like we finally have a place to go. Like we have something to work toward. And some future now that like we're willing to put that work in. And I don't know, I can't even tell you like how many times I've heard that. That's something that like I can't get across enough. So the positivity in that way is so strong that I feel like I don't care what negative stuff people have to say. Like every time a young girl tells me that, I'm like, yes, we did it, And so that part's cool. And I believe it. Like in 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, like it doesn't matter, but like they'll probably be there, Yeah. And so I think it's exciting. Like in my mind, it kind of like changed like the ASA archery forever, right? Like now there's all these new opportunities for people to like become a pro and like live out their dream and like work hard and accomplish those things and feel what a shoot down feels like. And so it's awesome. Like it's really cool. I'm so thankful to be a part of it, truthfully.
It's what I liked was, and again, this doesn't take anything away from the women's unknown pro, but, we saw those ladies, we've seen them there for years, but then to start to see a Paige Pearce, Tanya Galantine, Cassidy Cox, folks who we know from a certain genre of archery, now they're coming to ASAs. I think that's just cool to see new faces come in and to have a place, your own place for them.
And I think we're going to see a lot more also, like in the future. But, there's already so many great women in the ASA that are going to be able to feed that class.
Yeah.
And then there's great women in other types of archery and other organizations of archery that now can also come join the ASA and be part of what we're doing. And so to me, it's just a win all around. Like, I just wish that like the negativity stuff would stop. Like, it's not anything bad on the unknown. It's not, I'll blame the ASA and blame the sponsors or blame me, whatever. I don't care. Like the whole thing is that, again, if you look at the numbers that you brought up right at the beginning, like if archery is a pie, Bruce and I use this example all the time, but we just grew the pie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to take a slice away or we're not trying to, whatever else. It's like, we're just trying to make it bigger, like more accepting, more people can come in, more opportunity. And we did that. And it's pretty cool.
Paige, you could give 20 people, $100 bills, and someone will complain that theirs was wrinkled.
That's true. It's true. Yeah. No, I really think it's going to be a good thing. And I think over time, the worry and the fear of, like you said, it killing classes or doing this and doing, bad things, I think that's going to go away. It's just going to take time. But again, I think it's really cool we're doing this podcast, right, to talk about it. And it's cool that you had those numbers. I was going to say that because I knew, but I didn't know the exact numbers. So I was like, yes, he's bringing this up for me. I don't even have to do it. But no, I think it's really cool. I think it's exciting. And I feel like I just, like earlier you said, like, Field's dying, and that just depresses me because I love Field so much. Yeah, so it's like, it's just nice to have a form of archery that I also think is really cool and really exciting that is now flourishing, right? Yeah. And growing. And obviously we hope that, like, the more people that get good at this, my thought is, like, why wouldn't you go shoot Field? If it's going to make you better at ASA and you already know how to get a sight tape and you, like, all of these types of archery, like, intertwine and they all make you good at different things. And so, I would love to see, like, more crossover between the ASA and the NFAA and, all that kind of stuff, and even on the target side. And so I think there's some good stuff to be had for the future. I like seeing target archery, like, actually growing and excitement about it. And, COVID kind of scared everybody, right? And so I think we came out of it in a pretty positive way.
Awesome. Well, Paige Pearce, congratulations on winning the first women's known pro division there at the ASA, and we certainly appreciate your time today.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, folks, that's another episode of the Competition Archery Media Podcast. You can find us on all the platforms where you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for joining us today.